What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns back with you after the bye week. And we've lost Johnsy, RIP Johnsy. This is now the Hoge and Fishman show from this point forward because Jahns he had a toothache and then he had the tooth removed and he can no longer do podcasts. It's very sad. Kevin, how are you?
My teeth are good. I'm talking without pain, and I'm here to step in. I kind of was excited about the possibility of, and I think I suggested this to you guys off air, that you should have done the podcast like once Jahns came out of whatever anesthesia was used, like just roll right there.
See, I had a tooth pulled a few years ago. I don't think this was from what I understood, this was not one of those major ones where you're like loopy and out of it for days. When I went in, they just numbed up that side of my mouth, pulled out my wisdom tooth because it wasn't impacted, and I was coaching the next day. So I don't, they don't make them like they used to, I guess. I'm not really sure.
Listen, I don't want to bring down this, call this a facade, but Johnsy, this whole northwest side of Chicago tough guy,
Yeah.
you
I don't
know,
know.
not doing the podcast because of a pulled tooth.
Yeah. No, the next time
Didn't
I
he used
call
to
it
cover
6.
hockey? He was a hockey guy.
I know. No, I'm the hockey guy. I've been to 2 Blackhawks games in the last 3 days.
What's the
Hockey
record in
Hoge
those
is
games?
not very good. I mean, Saturday was a decent game, but last night was horrible. Blackhawks did not show up. Not that anybody can watch it. So I guess that's the good thing.
Look at us. We're taking shots at Jahns. We're taking shots at new TV stations in town.
Yeah. What else can we take shots at? Well, I mean, look, the basic premise of a television station, I think, is that people can watch it.
They said that they're available to everybody.
Oh, well, after 3 antennas, I did find the correct antenna. I can actually get to watch it from Vernon Hills. So we're making progress. No, I'm not going to hear the end of it the next time I take a day off now. So that's okay. No, Johnsy's fine. He'll be all right. He'll be back Friday. We're going to have a great show as we preview the Commanders on Friday. And this is a fun matchup. So everybody wish Johnsy well. He did have a tooth pulled. And he'll be back Friday. Instead, it's a fun fact Wednesday with Kevin Fishbain. Kevin's got some fun facts. I have some fill in the blanks I'm going to throw at Fishbain on the show too, to kind of spark some more bye week discussion. We are recording Wednesday morning, so Bears will be back to work today at Jahns Hall. We'll get our first injury report of the week. Obviously, eyes on Jaden Daniels and his status in Washington, and probably Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker, the big ones here in Chicago this week, as that injury report comes out later today. But we don't have that right now. So we'll have all that information by Friday's show and make our predictions and all that. But this is a fun matchup this week. Before we get into all that, Kev, what was the best thing you did during the bye week?
Oh, boy. It was not the Northwestern Wisconsin game.
What do you mean? That was a great game. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just going to give my 10 seconds on Northwestern. Okay. Because you're a football coach. Okay. If you have the ball at inside your own 15-yard line with, let's say, 45 seconds left in the first half, and you haven't moved the ball very well, and it's a very windy day, and you've got 1st and 15, don't send your quarterback back to pass near the goal line, because he might get strip sacked, and you might give the other team 7 points.
Yeah, thank you. That was very nice. That was very nice of David Braun and company to do.
Yeah. The Northwestern's game management to improve. I would say the best thing I did over my bye week, Hoge, was I was actually kind of near your neck of the woods a little bit at a pumpkin patch.
Oh, which one?
Didier Farms.
Oh yeah. It's a good spot.
Yeah. Took the kids there, and it's just it's fun to see them have fun. I gotta tell you though, I think when we retire from covering the Chicago Bears, we start a pumpkin patch.
Yeah. Was that?
I mean, like the how, like it's just like little tiny ride, and suddenly it's a $20 ride if you want to get as many
Oh
people on
yeah.
it as you want. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Like everything. And then all these people still show up.
It's great. It seems like a great business, but we had a lovely time. What about you? Not last night's Blackhawks game.
No, we still had a good time though. Went with my wife last night. Saturday was a good day. So Saturday, I actually, believe it or not, did not go to that game, the Wisconsin Northwestern game. Speaking of tickets being and things costing a lot of money, we instead went to the Blackhawks game as a family. But we also went to the Lincoln Park Zoo during the day. So that would have been my
Nice.
pumpkin patch adjacent activity that we did. On Saturday, which reminded me the last time I'd been in the Lincoln Park Zoo, which I basically grew up down the street. I could walk to the zoo. But now that I live in the burbs, we hardly ever go. The last time we went to the Lincoln Park Zoo, we ended up at your old apartment down the
That's
street.
right. Yes, you guys came over. Yeah.
Yeah. So that must have been a long time ago.
Yeah, and I remember you guys came in, James would have been 3 maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So
we had nothing for a child to, he ended up taking, like, the cord of our blinds and was fascinated by the cord playing with
that,
the yeah, that's all it
that's
took.
all kids
He was good.
need. Instead, now both of our houses are just loaded with crap that,
Yeah.
the kids play with for 5 seconds and then forget about. All you need is a cord that could, possibly cause a lot of damage just to play with for a little bit with parental supervision, of course. All right. Yeah, no, it was is a good little bye weekend. I'm ready for football. I'm ready for this. I've been excited for this game. It feels like for 2 weeks now. A lot of looking back at London and I don't know. It's just if we've talked a lot about this on this podcast, I feel like this year, Kev, but like just the vibes are very different. Whether it's even just our job covering this team, whether it's what we're feeling in the locker room from the players, me talking to Cole, Komet on Tuesdays, like everything just feels different. I asked him yesterday, like, can you feel the buzz right now in this town? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. But it's our job to keep that buzz going. And it is the NFL. And you go into Washington on Sunday and you lose, all of a sudden it's like a balloon that's just going to pop, or at least deflate for a week. So that is this league. But a lot of excitement right now with this team and a lot of excitement about this game coming off a high profile game in London. Now you get to be on that late afternoon window against the Commanders with Jim Nantz, Tony Romo calling the game this week. And the only thing that might spoil this a little bit is that Jaden Daniels seems to have a significant ribs injury. And as we record this on Wednesday morning, there seems to be some significant doubt on whether or not Jaden is going to play in this game, which is pretty much, I mean, let's be honest. This is the reason why this game got flexed. It's Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and I think to your point about the buildup is, Cole would be a good person and Jalen Johnson, the guys who were kind of longest tenured. Because like they were on that 2020 team that technically made the playoffs, the playoff season we all forget about. And
I
they
think
had
even they forgot they made the playoffs
yeah,
that year.
but they had a 5-game losing streak that year, I want to say, or a
It might have been
6-game losing streak.
6. I think it was
Yeah,
6.
because they started the season 2-0. 3-0. No, they started the season
They were
3-0.
they were 5-1.
That's right. They beat the
And
yeah.
then they, I believe, lost 6 games in a row here. I could pull it up right here. So we're talking about 2020. They were 5-1 to start the year, and then they lost 6 games in a row. And
Yeah.
then they won 3 games in a row. And then they lost to the Packers, but still got in with some help
But
the
because it
last
was
week.
the 2020 season, there wasn't any kind of it was just hard to generate any kind of buzz. You had the Trubisky Foles thing going on. So these guys haven't really experienced this. And I think everyone circled the Washington game because of the Jane Daniels, but also now after the last 3 games, it's like, okay, this is the moment where we see who this Bears team could really be. And you can still even have the conversations because you look at the next 3 defenses that we still might have to take all the way into the division. But yeah, I'm gonna I'm just gonna tease this one fun fact. We can go back to the game about Bears Washington because this is obviously a matchup that goes back to the 30s and 40s, right? Do you want to guess the last time the Bears and Commanders played each other when they both were above 500 in the game?
Wow. Was it the game where
No.
Jay Cutler got picked off by DAngelo Hall 5 times?
I'm glad you brought that up. It was 4 times.
It felt like 5.
Because that was the closest. So the Bears were 4-2 going into that game. So that's the last. So they were same record as today. The Washington franchise was 3-3 in that game.
Ooh, so close,
So
but not above
yes,
500.
close.
Got it.
But I'm glad you brought that game up because I did have that in my notes. But
We
so you have
talking
to
late 80s?
close. So 1991.
Ah.
So that means they've played 15 consecutive games in which at least one team has been at or below 500. And almost in 14 of those 15, one has been below 500. The one you brought up, the DAngelo Hall game, was the only one where one was at 500 and the other was above.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is, and yet they seem to play on primetime a lot when they're playing each other because it's, it's 2 big markets.
Right. 3 in a row on prime, 4 in a row on primetime, I think.
Yeah. Well, at least
Yeah.
it's not Thursday night this time. A little bit of a
Yes.
higher profile window this time. Well, we can get into more fun facts.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's start with the guy who might be playing quarterback for Washington. Marcus
man.
Mariota.
I feel like this is going to be a not fun fact.
Okay, so let's get into it. I'll ask the question, Hogue. Are the Commanders better situated to beat the Bears with Marcus Mariota at quarterback?
No.
This guy is 1 win away from an Osweiler. Those of you who the uninitiated, an Osweiler is when you beat the Bears 3 different times with 3 different teams, as Brock Osweiler did. He beat the Bears as a member of the Broncos, Texans, and Dolphins.
Yeah.
All 3 Vic Fangio defenses. He's Vic's kryptonite. Marcus Mariota beat the Bears in 2016 as a member of the Tennessee Titans, one of his best career games, 126.4 passer rating. And 2 years ago, he beat Matt Eberflus's defense when he was the starting quarterback for the Falcons. He ran for a touchdown, threw for a touchdown in a 27-24 win in Atlanta. Now, I know what you're going to say. You know what? Go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it.
Well, I was just going to say Justin got hurt in that game, and Marcus Mariota quit on his team later that year.
He did. Chronicled in quarterback.
Yeah. That was like the last time I saw Marcus Mariota before last week.
That was the game that kind of ended Justin Fields' run of running over teams because the Falcons ran that what was the style, with the mesh. They were essentially attacking the mesh point.
Oh yeah.
And it was the first time we had really seen that, and they were very successful. Cordell Patterson had that kickoff return for a touchdown for Atlanta. Now, I put this stat on Twitter yesterday, and some smart Alex pointed out that the 2016 Bears did go 3-13, and the 2022 Bears did go 3-14.
Yeah.
However,
Pretty
Marcus
bad teams.
Mariota, very bad teams, bad defense. However, the point stands: Marcus Mariota 2-0 against the Bears with 2 different teams.
All right. That was not fun, but it is interesting, and the Brock Osweiler thing brings up really bad memories, of course. But he was I'll never forget going to that Miami game.
Oh my gosh,
who was their starter at that time?
It was I think it was it still Tannehill? Because it was like the night before the game.
Yeah, it probably was Tannehill. It was like a last minute thing, and everybody's like, "Oh, Osweiler's in," and the Bears were already, I think, supposed to win, and so it's like, "Oh, this is an easy win now." And then no, because that was 2018. That was actually when the Bears were good.
Mitch had a really good game. He made some great throws in that game, and also it was a wild. I think like Akeem Hicks made forced a fumble like at the goal line.
Oh yeah,
and then
in overtime or right at the end of the game.
And then they went for what would have been the game-winning field goal. It was like 50 something, and Parkey missed it. And that was our first cut. No, first.
Wait, Parkey did what?
He did not doink it, I believe, but he didn't miss
But
the
he
field
missed.
goal.
Okay, he missed the field goal.
I think I feel like I brought this up recently. That was like one of the first eyebrow raising coaching like where we were kind of like what was the head coach doing in this game kind of
Yeah.
moments. Um, that game actually comes up in my first fun fact or my next fun fact.
Well, it would still qualify as your first fun fact. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, for those of you listening, I learn a lot about you when I post things like the Marcus Mariota thing, and you respond to me by telling me about how bad those defenses were. So that stat should be thrown out.
Mm.
I thank you for letting me know. Okay. Bears after a bye on the road haven't been good. Lost 4 in a row
Mm.
coming off a bye on the road, including that loss to the Dolphins in 2018. Those losses also include the 55-14 loss to Green Bay in 2014, the 41-25 loss at Green Bay in 2020, and a 36-10 laugher in Tampa in 2016. Do any of those games have anything to do with this current team? Absolutely not. But I was just curious. Like, I feel like the Bears haven't played on the road coming off a bye in a while. It has
So
been 4 years.
2020 was the last one.
Yeah.
All right.
So here's this surprised me. Let's see if you know the trivia. When was the last time the Bears were a road favorite?
Ooh, that's a good question. They haven't been favorites much lately.
I will
I
tell
don't know.
you, this stunned me when you think about what was going on during the week of this game, that the Bears were favored. Maybe that'll give
Was it
you a hint.
last year?
No, it's in
No.
the pre-Eberflus. So Eberflus has never been a road favorite.
Was it the Lions game Thanksgiving a few years ago when there was all the
Yep.
rumors and weird leaks that Nagy was getting fired?
Yep.
Wow.
They're one of the strangest weeks I think we've ever covered.
Yeah, and they won that game, right?
They
Yeah,
did.
they did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Andy Dalton. Bears won that game, I think 16-14, so they did not cover. They're 3-point favorites. So yeah, they have not been a road favorite since Thanksgiving 2021,
Wow.
according to StatHead. They were a road favorite under Matt Nagy 13 times, and went 10-3, which included 2019 win over Washington, better known as the Taylor Gabriel game.
Oh yeah. Mitch had some nice throws, kind of.
3 touchdowns to Gabriel in the first half. By the way, I'm going to cite Mark Potash here because this is his fact. He had this in his 1st and 10 that each Bears first round pick has played well against Washington and then got hurt the next week.
I saw that.
Did you
Yeah,
see
that
that?
was
Potsy,
a
like, because when I was looking up my last time the Bears and Commanders played, both above 500, I thought to myself, Potsy's got to have this. So I went to go double check because I wanted to make sure I gave him credit if he also had it. He did not, but he had this thing about the getting hurt after playing Washington.
that is the most Potsy stat ever.
So he called it from his Twilight Zone department.
Yeah.
Shout out Mark Potash.
But that's a good memory. Like, oh yeah, big game against Washington, gets hurt the next week.
Yeah. The last one is what I mentioned about the two teams playing each other above 500. That was October 6, 1991. Washington won that game 20-7. Jim Harbaugh threw 3 interceptions for the Bears in that game.
Okay.
You want to talk a little bit about like the game itself? This is I kind of was going to throw this in my fun fact, but this is a little bit more. I don't know if I'm using the word granular properly. This is more X's and O's. Have you looked up ESPN's win rate stats lately?
No.
So the Bears right now for run block win rate, which is what their analytics judge is like winning when it's a run blocking situation, the Bears rank 2nd in the NFL in that category right now. And 9th in pass block win rate.
And that's for the whole season.
Yeah, so, I mean, those numbers I think were vastly different after week 3,
Yeah, for sure.
and it, I think, speaks to how good that group has been over the last 3 weeks, but I thought that was kinda startling how impressive they've been in those matchups. Because I think we've all talked about this for the past, feels like a month, that, like, it is one thing to beat teams that you should beat, it's another team to beat the teams you should beat the way the Bears have in this win
Yeah.
streak.
Yeah, those numbers will probably come down because these matchups are going to get a lot harder. I go back to Tennessee. Tennessee's not a good team, but the interior of that defensive line was very, very tough. That was a tough matchup in week 1.
And
And
it's, by the way, that Tennessee defense is still very good.
Mhm.
We wondered after week 1, are we gonna look back and say, "Oh, wow, that Tennessee's got a good defense," and they've held their own.
Yeah, and those matchups specifically up front were tough. So, and they've been a lot easier the last 3 weeks, but to move up as much as they have, they've been dominating, which is a good sign that yeah, they'll come down a little, but can you still be pretty good overall once you start getting this tougher part of the schedule?
That was, a question. So we've got an NFC North roundtable up this week at The Athletic. So Alec Lewis, our Vikings writer, Matt Schneidman covers the Packers, Colin Pouncey on the Lions. The 4 of us just kind of went back and forth a little bit on the best division of football. And one of the questions was kind of, what's your team's biggest concern? And I went with O-line because of kind of what you just mentioned. Like, don't you feel like, I thought Cole, by the way, had a great quote when we talked to him on Monday about, like, what is sustainable, and he goes, "The quarterback." Like, we've seen that this, what the quarterback's doing is real, which is everything you wanna hear. I mean, that's most important. But I do feel like, you know you know DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Keenan Allen are good. You know Cole Kmet is good. I think we know DeAndre Swift is much closer to weeks 4 through 6 than 1 through 3. He's probably maybe a little bit in the middle, but he's not, like, weeks 1 through 3, he was maybe one of the worst running backs in football, and I think we know he's not that. But I think the offensive line, like, is that fair? It's like, if you're just looking up and down the roster and the position groups, like, would that be kind of, you're
Well,
splitting hairs a little bit.
well, you are, but it's weird because it still seems like it's in flux, even though it's been better.
Yeah.
Like they found guys to plug in, but what happens when Ryan Bates comes back? There, there, there's still questions like that. Is it solidified right now? I mean, I would be careful to mess with things too much, and the Bears would probably want to spin that as, oh, they just got really good depth, which I think there's some legitimacy to that. I think we've seen that. But yeah, that's probably still where I would go for
I'll give you
concern.
another one, actually. What is, I would say, the next time the Bears are in a close game, which probably will be Sunday, how does this coaching staff handle it?
Mm,
Just from all the
right.
different decisions that need to be made, from play calls to 4th down decisions. Like, I don't know if I wanna label that a concern, but I think it could be fair to have some questions about what that looks like.
Well, to your point, it's been a minute since they've been in a close game, right? Like the
The
closest game
Rams,
over these 3 wins was the Rams. Um,
and that was a great coaching performance, by the way.
yeah,
Like, I thought they outcoached one of the best in the business on the other side in that game. Um,
yeah.
but, certainly there were question marks in the Texans game and the Colts game, and you can go more general, just like, if going back to the division, right? When you look at Dan Campbell, Matt LaFleur, and KOC in Minnesota, and you look at who those guys' coordinators are, they're not talked about really in the same way that Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron are talked about.
Are you done with the fun facts?
Yeah, sorry, fill in some blanks for me, or I
All
guess I'm
right.
supposed to fill in the blanks for you.
Well, it's a good transition here. So the next 3 weeks, I mean, everyone's talking about this gauntlet of a schedule coming up. It is coming. But it's really not coming until November 17th when you play the Packers. 3 winnable games coming up here against the Washington Commanders, Arizona Cardinals, New England Patriots. Kevin Fishbain, the Bears will win blank games over the next 3 weeks.
2.
Ooh. Who do they lose to?
Wouldn't it be funny if they lost to the Patriots?
No.
See, this is like the Mariota thing. Like Bears teams that we are used to covering lose to Marcus Mariota, right? Bears teams that we're used to covering trip up against like Drake May. I feel like.
Well, I understand why you're saying 2. I mean, game in Arizona is not easy.
I watched a lot of that game.
Yeah.
For purely entertainment reasons, of course. I was dialed in, and I was really impressed with that Arizona defense and James Conner. I mean, James Conner was running like Pittsburgh James Conner. Like they were really, really impressive in that game.
So I'm tempted to say 3 because I think there's a couple things here. One is I think this defense is legitimate, and that's always going to give you a chance. You know, defense travels. It's always going to give you a chance. And the big difference is to what Cole said yesterday or on Monday in his press conference, you know, the quarterback, it seems sustainable. But it is the NFL. And I feel like you do get tripped up here and there, and maybe
it's hard
something
to win
will happen.
6 in a row.
It's hard for you and me too, with all the not so fun facts and history that we've already covered in the first 27 minutes of this podcast, to be like, yeah, it's 6-game win streak. It's all going to come together before they play Green Bay. So
it's like how people,
I really want to say 3, but I think 2 is the safe answer.
Imagine being the Chiefs, right? We're like, they have not necessarily been playing great football, and here they are.
Yeah.
Undefeated. That's just something that, I mean, like the 2018 team went through a spell like that, right? When they had their win streak in the middle of the season. Like where we just kind of knew going into some of those games.
Well,
and I think you make a good point about the defense, because it's like as good as the offense has been especially the last 2 games, it's like you forget like the thing that's going to carry this team is ultimately the defense.
Yeah. We were joking on the 85 yesterday with Cole Kmet that somehow TJ Edwards was on the show yesterday. Somehow that was the first defensive guest we've had. And it was like no rhyme or reason. It was completely accidental, coincidental, whatever you want to say. And it was like, yeah, probably about time the defense got some love.
You had the punter on before you had the
well, and if you're going to throw, I mean, and then last week was a long snapping episode. So we've really had 3. We've covered kicking, punting, and long snapping. And we finally got around to this defense in mid-October. It's just, it's fun. I mean, it's been fun though. But that was funny. All right, next one. The Bears will make blank trades ahead of the trade deadline.
Oh, I'm gonna say 1.
Okay. Is that a trade away or trade for?
Whatever it is, I don't think it's going to be blockbustery at all. I think it could be something as I don't know what. I just like can't fathom a trade deadline in which Ryan Poles does nothing. Yeah. Now maybe Ryan Poles would argue he made his 2 deadline trades when he traded for Darrell Taylor and Chris Williams in late August. Like those were his moves. So maybe I should count those. But it's just weird to like, again, I thought Brad Biggs made a good point. I was reading him this morning in the Tribune about Khalil Herbert. Like if you trade Khalil Herbert, who replaces Khalil Herbert?
Yeah,
and you, Mr. Special Teams coach, like you know what his role is as a core guy. And
I don't trade Khalil Herbert. I don't.
Right, and then you also, I mean, you can't ask for a better backup really to your running backs. You don't have
I don't
anybody
think
else.
I'd trade Velus Jones either. I mean, like
I don't
the
want. I don't. Why? Like, the thing with you know how I am with Velus Jones. I've become a Velus Jones truther, and now I'm going to be the Velus Jones guy who says he's inactive any week. Who cares?
but what it is, and it's the same thing with Herbert, is and you have a head coach who's always talking about having a pair and a spare at every position. And now you got all these fans that want to trade all the spares away.
Well, and that's why the Nate Davis thing is the one, because when Ryan Bates comes back and the way Bill Murray's played, like, and he was a healthy scratch last week, like that's would, but I don't know who, I don't know who trades for him, but it just
Well,
takes one.
it just takes one team that's desperate for an offensive lineman who's good enough to plug and play, which I think Nate Davis still is. And you say, look, if you can eat this money, Bears, we'll take a flower on this guy. Like we're in the middle of the season, so we don't need to worry about him not practicing in May.
Good point.
We don't need to worry about him not practicing during the grind of training camp. It's the middle of the season. We're desperate for offensive line help. We know this guy's good enough to at least come in and give us some quality reps, which I still think Nate Davis, for the most part, does. Like, the problem with Nate Davis isn't really that, it's all the other stuff. So if you're a team that can, like, basically acquire him, if the Bears are willing to eat the money and you're willing to give up a late pick for him, I could see that trade still happening.
Yeah, so I think that would be the one. And again, there could be, I don't know, how about a backup 3 technique somewhere
Yeah.
that you give up a, but again, that could be Chris Williams, who had his first career sack in London. I don't, I just, again, I'll say one just because I feel like Poles is never afraid, but he also might have already done his trades for the year.
I'm going to say 2, but both are
Oh
minor.
my gosh. Holy smokes.
I think there's a trade away and a trade for, but both are minor.
Okay.
Blank will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. The odds for you right
Okay. Yep.
now,
Hit me.
Jaden Daniels is down to minus 145. Caleb Williams has closed the gap, now plus 115. I hope you guys listened to me a few weeks ago when Caleb Williams was plus 650. And I told you guys right now is the time to bet him. You're not going to get better odds than this, and this gap will narrow. Plus 650. That was a few weeks ago. It's down to plus 115. Jaden Daniels, just talking scenarios. If he doesn't play this week and Caleb Williams balls out, Caleb Williams will probably be the favorite by next week. Who wins it?
Who's third?
Malik Neighbors is third.
That's not going to happen.
And then Marvin Harrison Jr. is after that. There's a significant gap, though. Let me bring this back up. Awards. Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, yeah, Jaden Daniels minus 145. Caleb Williams plus 115. Malik Neighbors is plus 2,000. So, really seems like a 2-horse race on the offensive side.
Gosh. When you put it like that, I guess I say Caleb Williams.
I think it's Caleb, too.
Yeah. Would that be the first Bears Offensive Rookie of the Year since Anthony Thomas?
Probably is. I don't even remember him winning that award, but
I believe he won that. You can give me the next. I'll look that up.
the A Train. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to bring that up because I don't know if people are paying attention to the fact that gap. Oh, Jaden Daniels, all this stuff the first few weeks of the season. The gap's closed a little bit, quite a bit, actually.
Yes. Not only is Anthony Thomas the last Bear to win this award, he is the only Bear to ever win the award, which dates back to 1967.
Man, Cade McNown got snubbed. Next one, the Bears will finish in blank place in the NFC North. This is tough. tough because literally it's on the table that 4 teams from this division make the playoffs. Like you could finish in last and make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'll say 4th.
Yeah.
I thought that. Well, I mean, like, I wondered if the Vikings were on fraud watch, for lack of a better term. And I think they are really well coached, and I think they showed last Sunday that they're in it. And I don't know. I would say 3rd or 4th right now. And I'll lean 4th because but I still, yeah, I don't. It's hard for me to picture Sam Darnold still winning games in December.
That's
That's
why I'm going
yeah,
3rd. It's a long
yeah.
season. We're still in only mid-October, and I watched that entire game on Sunday, and I thought before David Montgomery had that ball punched out that thing was going. It was going to be not a blowout win, obviously, but like we would have been talking about. Oh yeah, okay, the Lions went into Minnesota and won comfortably. Like they're clearly better. I still think that's what I saw watching that game, even though that was a huge turning point. That fumble, they returned it for a touchdown. All of a sudden, the Vikings are winning, but the Vikings couldn't put the game away. They had the opportunity to do that, and Sam Darnold couldn't get a first down. So I am putting Sam Darnold 4th in the quarterback rankings in this division, and I think that's ultimately going to be how this plays out. So I got the Bears finishing 3rd.
Can I change my answer?
Yes.
3rd.
Okay. By the way, these will all be held against all of us at the end of the year.
Great.
Actually, everybody, including ourselves, will forget this. Just one more. I think this is a fun one. The Bears will be eliminated from Super Bowl contention in blank week of January.
Super Bowl contention.
So I had to word it that way because it's basically like saying, you could say, are they eliminated from the playoffs? So if you don't think they're going to make the playoffs, or what week will they lose in the playoffs where they're actually, season's over? Does that make sense? Like, what week are they
no.
eliminated from postseason contention? Or if they do make the playoffs, what week is it over? And I'm going to give you. There's an interesting bet you can place called Stage of Elimination.
Wow. You bet on
The
anything
Bears,
these days.
I'll give you some odds on this. The Bears are minus 200 to miss the playoffs. So they're still favored to not make the playoffs. To lose in the wild card round, you can get plus 360. Now, this is where I'm going to give you what I think is great value if you're into this stuff. Because we covered this on CHGO the other day. To lose in the divisional round, they're plus 750. And if the Bears do sneak in the playoffs, if you look at the playoff picture right now, the 3 wild card teams are the Vikings, Packers, and Bears in that order. Those 3 teams might be favored on the road in the playoffs. If you look at the fact that Washington's in first place in their division, Seattle's in first place in their division, the Falcons are in first place in their division. Like, by the way, Kirk Cousins going up against the Vikings in the first round of the playoffs, that'd be fun. Green Bay is probably favored going to Seattle. And the Bears would be playing the Commanders on the road, which is the matchup this week that a lot of people feel like the Bears can win. So the point is, if they do make the playoffs, I feel like there's a decent chance that they would actually win their first game. So plus 750 to lose in the divisional round seems like pretty good value to me.
Wow. That's interesting.
It's fun having these conversations about possible playoffs.
Yeah, I'd rather talk about this.
They're definitely going to lose on Sunday, aren't they?
So it's fun having these conversations week. But that's the thing, too, is I guess if they lose on Sunday, are they going to be favored in Arizona? That's going to be
We
If
had
they
that
lose on
discussion
Sunday, maybe
yesterday.
not.
I had them favored like 1.5 was what I had.
Okay. Yeah, because like you look through the schedule, and what is it? They go 2-1 in the next three, and they split the division. Then they have to beat Seattle to get to 10 wins.
Mhm.
I mean, they're
All right, well,
certainly capable of doing that, but I'm
let me
I'm
let,
going.
let me help you answer
Yeah.
the question. So the Week 18 game in Green Bay is January 5th. Do you think they're eliminated from playoff contention before that game? Because technically, this answer could be December.
No, no. I don't think they're. I think they'll be eliminated from Super Bowl contention on January 12th in Philadelphia.
Ooh, yeah, that would be a tough. That would be a tough one to win if that's what the matchup ends up being. Okay, so the Eagles end up getting the 2 seed,
Recency bias.
and the Bears they win the Eagles win the division. They get the 2 seed. The Bears get the 7 seed. Even though you just changed your answer to so.
Oh wait, no. What could the Eagles
Well,
get the?
you could say that not all 4 teams from the North are getting in.
Well, I could say the Eagles get the 3 seed,
Okay, yeah,
and
okay,
the Bears get the 6.
fair enough. I'm gonna get bold. Just the way things look right now, I'm gonna get bold and say the Bears get eliminated on January 19th in the division,
Oh my gosh.
which would possibly mean a game in Detroit in the playoffs. That's fun. I hope they're in that scenario. There'll be a lot of people watching this show that week if that's the case.
I've only been to one playoff game since I joined the beat in 2013.
Same. So you didn't go
And
to
you
New
joined in
Orleans either.
2012. No.
Yeah, I didn't either. Again, that doesn't really count as a playoff game.
Right.
Shout out to Jimmy Graham walking off after scoring a walk-off touchdown to lose. That was one of my top 3 favorite Bears moments of all time, I think. It was so good. All right. Fun show today. Appreciate everybody watching, listening. As always, please hit the subscribe button. Hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. If you watch on YouTube, please go subscribe to the podcast version. If you listen to the podcast, please go to our YouTube channel, Hoge and Jahns. Hit subscribe. Help grow the show. We greatly appreciate it. Send the links off to a friend. And check out hoganjahns.com as well for all of our merchandise. Give Kevin Fishbain a follow if you don't already at K Fishbain, and you can read all of his work, Johnsy's work, on The Athletic. theathletic.com/HoganJahns is where you can go to subscribe and get a great deal right now. Any final thoughts?
For those who listen to the whole show, quick plug for you. If you haven't read, I have a story that went up on Monday about a Bears fan who has been to every home game for 60 years, and he doesn't spend his full time in Chicago. He flies in from Colorado.
Wow.
So I got a chance to sit with him in London because he was at that game. Since it was technically a home game, he wanted to continue the streak that began with the 1962 season finale. And that wasn't his first Bears home game, but that was the game. That was the day that the streak began. And he has not, aside from the 2020 season, he has not missed a home game.
So
Scott
he got the 63 championship year and then just got hooked.
Yep. He started going to games, he said, in 55. He got the flu and couldn't go to the second to last game in 62. And he said, that's it. I'm not going to miss another home game. And he has stuck to it, even while living part of the year in Colorado. So you can check that out at The Athletic. Very, very fun story.
That's awesome. Good for him. And so that counted as a home win and everything in London.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I mean, it felt like a home game.
Did.
The atmosphere was awesome. Well, 2 road games coming up, by the way, where you can get plenty of road fans in the stadium. It happens in Washington, although I think that's probably shifting a little. I think we're having Ben Standick on the show on Friday. I I want to hear about the overall. They changed ownership. They got their quarterback. I'm sure the buzz with the Commanders, but typically in the past, because of where that stadium's located, because it's kind of a transplant town, you could get a lot of Bears fans into that stadium in Washington, and then of course in Arizona, it's just Chicago West, so that could feel like another home game in 2 weeks. So despite the long road trip to London, bye week, road trip to Washington, road trip to Arizona, it's still kind of like 3 games where you're going to have plenty of Bears fans represented, which is usually the case. All right, that's going to do it for us. We wish Jahns the best. We'll have him back on Friday, and we will break down more in depth this matchup against the Commanders. Hopefully have a little bit more clarity on Jayden Daniels and what's going on with Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon at that point. We will talk to you on Friday.
See ya.